Welcome back. Today we're going to be talking about some properties. We're going to be talking about the commutative, associative, and multiplicative property of zero. These are not the only properties that we're going to be talking about this year, but these are the first three properties that we're going to be talking about. So let's get right to it. So taking a look at our chart, we've got our three properties that we're going to talk about: commutative, associative, multiplicative, right across from each other. And we've got some definitions and some examples of each. So let's go ahead and start with the commutative property on our far left. It can be of addition or multiplication, so it can apply to either one. And it states that changing the order does not change the sum or the product. So if we change the order of the numbers in either addition or multiplication, it's not going to change the outcome. So looking at our numerical examples down there, we've got 9 plus negative 13 is the same thing as negative 13 plus 9. We also have a multiplication example. Negative 4 times negative 2 gives me positive 8. The same thing as negative 2 times negative 4 gives me positive 8. Then we have some symbolic examples. So x plus y is going to give me y plus x, and x times y will be z, and y times x will be z. So commutative property, the order can be changed, but the outcome will be the same. Let's move over to the associative property now. And again, associative property can be applied to either addition or multiplication. So that summary states that when we're changing the grouping, it does not change the sum or the product. So we can change the groups or how the numbers are grouped within grouping symbols with either parentheses or absolute value bars or brackets, and it's not going to change the outcome of our problem. So looking at our numerical example, we can see that the negative 11 is on the outside and the negative 6 and the negative 7 are on the inside in our first example. Then we're going to change the grouping, so we're going to move the parentheses to be around the negative 11 and the negative 6, and either way the outcome is going to be negative 10. Again, if we're going to follow our order of operations, we'll do our parentheses first. So in the first example, negative 6 plus 7 is going to be positive 1. Positive 1 plus negative 11 is going to give me negative 10. And in my second example, negative 11 plus negative 6 is going to give me negative 17. Then I'm going to add that to positive 7, and that's going to also give me negative 10. So changing the grouping did not change the outcome of the problem. And that's what the associative property says. We also have a multiplication example. 12 times 5, put together in the parentheses, times negative 2. It's going to be the same thing as negative 12 times 5 times negative 2 inside the parentheses. And below we have symbolic examples. A plus B on the inside plus C on the outside is the same thing as A on the outside and B and C on the outside. Now it's important to notice that in the symbolic example, you can really see it. The order does not change. If the order changed, it would also show that we were doing the commutative property. But in the left-hand side, A, B, and C are in order. And on the right-hand side, A, B, and C are in order. The only thing that moves is the parentheses around the outside. So they move from the front to the back. So the grouping changed, but the order of the letters did not. Same thing in the multiplication example. ABC equals D and ABC equals D. The only difference is the parentheses move from the back to the front. So it's important to notice that since we're using only the associative property, the order should remain the same. Now let's take a look at the multiplicative property of 0. And the multiplicative property of 0 states the product of any value and 0 is going to be 0. And this is one of our easier properties. It only applies to multiplication, so it only works with multiplication. Negative 8 times 0 is 0, and again, z times 0 is 0. So now let's take a look at a couple examples. So here we are with a few different types of examples. So on the left-hand side, we're going to start with what property is demonstrated in each example. So I have to figure out what's changing between line 1 and 2, and then what property that represents. So in the first problem, I can see that the thing that is changing is in the original problem, I have 4 times 0. And in the second line, 4 times 0 has become 0. So I know if I'm multiplying something times 0, that's the multiplicative property of 0. In the second one, it's a little trickier. I've got 4 plus negative 8 times 3, and then negative 8 times 3 plus 4. So my grouping didn't change. The parentheses is still around the negative 8, still around the 3. I didn't change what's being multiplied. The negative 8 and the negative 3 are still in order. Negative 8 first, positive 3 second. So what's changing is the positive 4. In the very beginning on the left-hand side, the positive 4 is at the front. And the second part of the problem, the positive 4 is at the back. So that's what changed. The order of the addition. So that is going to be the commutative property of addition. The third example, I've got 8 times 4 plus 9 equals 41, and then 4 times 8 plus 9 equals 41. So the change is inside the parentheses. The parentheses stay around the same two numbers, but inside the parentheses, the 8 and the 4 switch places. So that's going to be the commutative property of multiplication. And the last one, I've got negative 11 times 6 times 5 plus 8, and negative 11 times 6 times 5 plus 8. Now notice the numbers are in the same exact order. On the left-hand side, negative 11, 6, 5, 8, right in order. And on the right-hand side, negative 11, 6, 5, 8, right in order. So what changes is the parentheses. On the left-hand side, the parentheses are around the negative 11 and the 6. And on the right-hand side, they're around the 6 and the 5. So since the grouping changed, that's going to be the associative property of multiplication. Now let's take a look at the right-hand side where it says rewrite the expressions using the property given. So in the first one, I've got negative 9 plus 4 times 3, and it wants me to do the commutative property of multiplication. In the second one, it says the associative property of addition. And this last one, it says the commutative property of addition. I want you to try and rewrite these problems on your own. Pause the video now, then press play again to see if you are right. How did you do? Were you able to get the answers that I got? Notice that in the first one, it talks about changing the order of only the multiplication. So the 3 and the 4 have to switch places. The second one, I'm going to be talking about associative property. So I'll be moving the parentheses, which is what I did. And then the last one, I needed to do the commutative property of addition. So again, the multiplication stays in the same spot. 3 times 2, same thing as in the bottom one. Negative 15 times 3, same one as in the top one. But I switched the places front to back because I'm changing the order of the addition. Now the last two tell us to place a box around the two steps that show the property indicated. Multiplicative property of 0 and the associative property of multiplication. I want you to try these two on your own. You're going to pause the video now and then press play again to see if you are right. How did you do? Were you able to put the boxes around the two properties that I put them around? Hopefully you did. If not, go ahead and fix your paper to look like mine. This brings us to the end of this set of notes. So if you like this video, go ahead and throw us a thumbs up. If you love this video, go ahead and throw us a sub, and we will catch you in the next one.